Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Three Buck Theater, and I know that I'm like 2 days late to this party, and for that, I really apologize. Trust me, I've seen the mentions, I've seen the comments. You guys want me to talk about Sony Pictures chief on the Spider-Man split. For the moment, the door is closed, and this is what people are running with. This is the headlines. This is what people think is happening. I don't believe this for a moment, right? They're like, for the moment. The door is closed. For the moment, Spider-Man is gone from the MCU. Not for the moment. I mean, it is true for the moment, but what I mean by this is not that the door is closed. And if anyone closed the door, it's Sony, but it's just that they're waiting for Disney to come back to the table, and in the meantime, they're going to fast track whatever the hell it is they're working on. That's my theory, that's my opinion, but let's find out more here. So, fans holding out hope that Spider-Man might be returning to the Marvel Cinematic Universe will be disappointed to hear that for the moment the door is closed, according to Sony Pictures Chairman and CEO, Tony Vinciquerra. Now, speaking at Variety's Entertainment and Technology Summit, Vinciquerra cryptically added that it's a long life, implying that perhaps in the distant future, the web-slinging hero might swing his bay back into the Disney-owned company. Now, what exactly does that mean? I mean that, like, legitimately. What is he even trying to say there? See, a lot of people think the deal is, oh, Marvel's going to come back to the table. Disney's going to come back to the table. They're going to make it work. They're going to make this thing. They're going to make it a reality. Well, I don't think that. Sony, like Columbia Pictures, doesn't make that much money. And I think Sony realizes this. Like, Sony's predominant earner is the PlayStation division. And they are trying to get into doing PlayStation-based films with PlayStation production. And if those aren't done well, if those aren't done right, then it's ultimately going to continuously kill Columbia Pictures and Sony to the point of where potentially they might have to sell it off or start selling off some of the rights to characters that they have. Now, the last one they'd want to get rid of ultimately would be Spider-Man. But like I've said before, if they decide to sell Sony Pictures, if Columbia Pictures and all that stuff goes away, the rights return to Marvel. It is within Sony's best interest to continue working with Disney and Marvel for not only the benefit of the character, but for the benefit of their own damn company. And I'm telling you, I'm not wrong on that. People like to argue with me on that one. You're wrong. And I wait for the day I get those messages from people. Anyway, now he went on to insist that there is no ill will between Sony and Marvel after the two failed to reach the agreement on financing terms for upcoming Spider-Man movies, effectively removing Tom Holland's Spider-Man from the Marvel folds in terms of both feature standalone and team-up features. However, he did acknowledge that the fan backlash to the news in saying that it had been an interesting couple of weeks for the studio. Yeah, no shit, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. You screwed up. You dropped the ball. You really hurt yourself here. And again, this was an absolute Sony mess up. Really, you guys have got to let go of this Disney's the bad guy here scenario, because there's in no way is it accurate. In no way is it accurate. Now, he went on to point out that Marvel boss Kevin Feige being stretched incredibly thin with the new additions to the MCU is one of the reasons behind the breakdown talks. That's not true at all. They stopped talking to Marvel 7 months ago, when it was time to renegotiate the deal, coming up to Endgame, coming up to Far From Home. Sony stopped talking to Marvel. They stopped working with them. So if they stopped working with them, the deal at this point was just kind of in limbo. It was just lingering there. No one knew what was going on. And I think that had everything to do with Sony waiting on what happened with Far From Home. Could Far From Home pull in more money than Spider-Man Homecoming? I mean, ultimately it did, but that was the question. Could it survive post Iron Man, which is, I think, a big part of that? And it did. And Sony is, yeah, they a little full of themselves. And this next passage will kind of start to explain that. Now, he says, we've had a great run with Feige on Spider-Man movies, the Sony chief said. We tried to see if there's a way to work it out. The Marvel people are terrific people. We have great respect for them. But on the other hand, we have some pretty terrific people on our own. Kevin didn't do all the work. That's true. The Marvel machine did the work. Remember, Marvel maintained creative control over Spider-Man. Marvel had creative control, meaning Marvel made all the decisions. Maybe some people at Sony chimed in. Maybe Amy Pascal at some point chimed in. Maybe there was something. Now, the only thing I can even remotely push back on Sony with to give them credit for was the casting of Tom Holland. He was their pick. Asa Butterfield was Disney's pick. And ultimately, Asa Butterfield, according to rumor, could not banter with Robert Downey Jr. when Tom Holland could, and they had that father-son bond, which really sold it, so that's great. But yeah, other than that, 100% Marvel. You look at Homecoming, you look at Far From Home, it's 100% Marvel. Now, it says that one of the biggest properties is solely back in its hands. Vince Cinquera said that Sony plans to launch its own universe using the vast array of Spider-Man characters. Of course they are, because this is all opportunism. This is all opportunism. That's all it is. This is the plan. Read between the lines, folks. I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist here. Read between the lines. Venom made money. Into the Spider-Verse made, best animated feature. They are feeling like they are hoity-toity, that they don't need Marvel. Look at that lineup there. We have some great people on our own end. I bet you do. And you're talking them up, and I like that. But there's hubris there. There's ego there. And what cometh before the fall? Pride. You're trying to protect your assets. Now, the studio is in production on a second Venom film, a picture based on the character Morbius, and 5 or 6 TV series set in the Spider-Man world. Although I believe those ones are up in the air now. The Sony boss bullishly expresses belief that the characters will do just fine outside of the MCU, pointing to the success of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and the Sony Amazon series The Boys, as evidence that Sony is fully capable of hitting the mark on the superhero front. Okay, first and foremost, like I just said, Into the Spider-Verse, best animated picture. Great movie. Loved it. Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Guess what? They've now signed with, I think it was Universal. They're following Amy Pascal to Universal. They will not be working on future films. They have a first look deal with Universal. So they're out. They're not working with them anymore. Okay. So the two dudes who guided this movie to the best animated picture, the two guys behind the first Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and the first Lego movie, they're out. They ain't working on it anymore. So Tony here is wrong. Let's talk about The Boys. The Boys is a fantastic show. It's an amazing show. If you haven't seen The Boys, you are missing out. 8 hours of pure comic book goodness. Oh my God, I love it so much. But who's behind that show? Eric Kripke from Supernatural and Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. And they really brought it. So you have a solid creative team behind it. Does that mean that Eric Kripke, Seth Rogen, and Evan Goldberg are going to be moving over to Spider-Man? No, of course not. Seth Rogen tried that with Green Hornet back in 2011. And how bad was that mess? Right? So we can already tell that none of those things even make any sense. If you pay attention at all, just ancillarily pay attention to Sony, you know where things are. Now, finishing up here, it says Spider-Man was fine before the event movies and did better with the event movies. And now that we have our own universe, he will play off other characters as well. I think we're pretty capable of doing what we have to do here. Yeah. Oh yeah. You're totally credible. I just would like to take you back to February 2015, just really quickly. This is here. This article from February 9th, 2015, Spider-Man is now part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And the reason why I bring this up, the reason why I talk about this, the reason why this is important has everything to do with the fact that they went to Marvel. They did. They went to Marvel in the summer of 2014 after Amazing Spider-Man 2 failed to make the money that they thought it was going to make when it pulled in $45 million less than its predecessor with a much higher budget. Amy Pascal went to Kevin Feige and the talks fell through. And then they initially attempted to downplay it when the leak happened, but then it came to fruition. Why? Because Amy Pascal negotiated their deal on her way out. I am just saying, if you look at the information, you can see Sony's game plan and they fail consistently. And for those of you out there that are going to try to argue, but Amazing Spider-Man 1 or Amazing Spider-Man was good, and Spider-Man 1 and 2 were good. No, they were. They were very good movies. I like all the Spider-Man films. I want you guys to know this. The Sony ones and the Marvel ones. I like them all. Even Amazing Spider-Man Part 2. I do. But we're talking about overall success rates here. And when the talks fell through with Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal in 2014, in the fall of 2014, they went back to Sam Raimi, hoping to get Sam Raimi to come back to reboot the franchise again. And it didn't work. So they made this deal. That's the whole point. Now, when they talk about, when Tony talks about Kevin Feige being kind of the linchpin of this, right? Doesn't it seem a little bit reminiscent of something else you saw? Now, back on August 20th, 2019, these are 3 tweets that Sony put out talking about the situation, saying that much of the news here was miscategorized. Recent discussions about Kevin Feige's involvement in everything. Says, we're disappointed but respect Disney's decision to not have him continue as lead producer of our next live-action Spider-Man film. We hope this might change in the future, but understand that the many responsibilities Disney has given him, including the newly added Marvel properties, do not allow him time to work on the IP for which they do not own. Kevin is terrific, and we're grateful for his help and guidance, and appreciate the path he kept us on, which we will continue. So remember that one, right? They shifted the blame. They dropped the story in Deadline, because they did. And then they went and came back with it and said, well, no, really, it's not the money. It's just that Disney's not working with us, and it's their choice to not let Kevin Feige play in someone else's sandbox. This is not an issue of Kevin Feige being too stretched thin. Feige wants to deal the work. Feige puts in the work. We all know this about Kevin Feige. If you follow Kevin Feige at all, you know exactly what he thinks. You know exactly what he's up to. This is not new stuff. But at this point, we 100% know that this was all Sony's fault. And now they're trying to play damage control. But I like this comment here from Mikey Sutton from comicbook.com, who posted on Facebook, he's lying. As I've mentioned before, this is called the takeaway. It's a business method. I've done it before. He's putting pressure on Disney to accept an inferior deal by negotiating through social media and the press. They denied talking to Disney with the first deal too. And also, let's not forget, Fox also said they were through talking to Disney before they were purchased. And again, there's a lie that Kevin Feige is too busy. It's always been from Sony claiming that to rid themselves of the blame should the new deal not go through. And I just showcased that. I just showcased that they've been constantly trying to put the blame on Kevin Feige and being too spread thin. Now, he says, if you want to believe this man, and rage-clicking sites will follow, be my guest, panic all you want. And should you decide to do that, study up on business and what they do in negotiations. This is 101. I'm sticking by my intel, and thank you. Quite frankly, this is nothing different from what Sony was saying not too long ago. Compare them, just different words. The key lines here are for the moment. Of course, what many will remember is the door is closed. In other words, they haven't reached a deal yet. Same as it ever was. Yep, that's basically where we find ourselves right now. The deal is not done. The door is closed for the moment. But that only means it's a negotiation tactic. What Tom Rothman, who is terrible at running a studio, and Tony here are trying to do is negotiate with Disney through social media, through the trades, trying to get people on their side to go, we're open for negotiation. Disney doesn't want to talk with us. But they keep doing this. They keep putting the blame on them. They keep shifting it over to them. And it's working a little bit more now, but it's not working as well as they think, because I think a lot of people are smart enough to read between the lines here. There's no reason to think that Disney does not want this deal to continue. There's no reason. They put in the work. They built Spider-Man up to $1 billion property. Sony cut a check. Oh, we have great people on our side too. Maybe the marketing department, except for the posters that were terrible. And the box art, that's kind of terrible. And you put out an extended cut with 4 to 7 minutes of extra footage that raised an additional $5 million. And everything you wanted to see in that was already in the preview. The first trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home had most of that footage. So no, they don't know what they're doing. They've never known what they're doing. And if they want to keep their company, take the goddamn deal. cut it to 70-30 or 75-25 if they're willing to go that route. Let them produce it. You cut a check. You collect the dough. You effectively become an investor in your own property, and you give it to a master painter instead of the people you have who are writing doodles and scribbling notes in your writer's room. And that's where we are right now. I mean, do you want Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel for you, or do you want Matt Groening in the 80s? Both are quality in different ways, but the long-lasting nature of it still is Michelangelo. Right? So just think about that. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions. Again, this is going to be an interesting one. If you made it this far, and I am surprised if you have, please do me a favor, type SpiderMan into the chat. Be sure to leave a comment. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, all that jazz. If you want to really check out some stuff, come over here to facebook.com/groups/3 Buck Theater. This is the Facebook page. I'm building that up right now. I do a live podcast, Hollywood After Dark. Check back the channel for more information on that one. And if you really like me, if you really want to help out, come over here to patreon.com/Matt Jarbo. And this really helps things go right now because YouTube is just an absolute mess. It is just an absolute mess right now. So anything helps out. Really appreciate it. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day. Thank you again for watching, and peace out.